Welcome back to the Tide Hanger. This is Mike. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, going into a fun weekend here. And today I want to talk to you about knockoffs and pretty much Hasbro going after Transformer and other properties for the knockoffs, for trying to uphold their intellectual property. But every time someone talks about this, there's a bit of a small difference between, say, third-party and Fanstoys and actual KOs of product. There's a difference, but they still fall in the same category. I'm going to explain the difference and talk about this, but this picture's been floating around and some people asking me about this. Of course, Hasbro's already been enforcing this stuff, and I've already dealt with this myself personally. People always worry about, will Fanstoys get shut down? Will any of these third-party companies that they really enjoy the Transformers from, will they get shut down? Well, I'm going to show you why I'm not too worried about it, because we've seen this come and go in the past. And I don't know if that picture from 1935 is really going to do anything, but let's talk about this and more coming up. Alright, so I'm not sure about the origins of this picture. I kind of feel like this is just something, it looks like someone took a picture of something that was like a picture that was made in 1935, and it's aged quite a bit and aged poorly. But anyhow, this is probably an article out of a book or something. I have no idea where this came from. But it says, stealing our business is no joking matter. We will prosecute any company that distributes or sells infringing toys in the U.S. And they specifically talk about knockoffs of Transformers and how Customs has stopped it. And they also bring out the term bootleg in there somewhere. But there's a difference between knockoffs and bootlegs, but they're both infringing on their IP. Now, there's some ways that these companies get around it. They tiptoe around it. But in all reality, the Fanstoys, the X-Transbots, the MMCs, they're more or less protected because there's no laws that can go really against them the way they do their business. But let's first talk about this. Whenever this topic comes up, you got people saying, well, knockoffs are terrible, but what Fanstoys is doing is perfectly fine. So the difference between a knockoff and the IP infringement from Fanstoys or X-Transbots or MMC or any of them, the fact that a knockoff is a direct one-to-one copy of the mold. So Hasbro had 40 years ago, well, technically Takara, or actually whoever they got the Devastator from, they made the design, and somebody got it, reverse engineered it, and just created a one-to-one replica as a KO. But no, they really didn't. If you get any of these knockoffs, you get like the Dinobot knockoffs, you get even this knockoff. If you get any of these knockoffs, you're going to find that they're technically not one-to-one. Parts aren't compatible 100%. And in some cases, they've even fused together joints to make it even cheaper to reproduce. But it's not the exact same thing. They don't include the diecast where they used to have diecast. They don't include the Transformer Autobot and the correct symbols on them. And they make their own symbol up. So there's a lot of things they do to skate around it, skirt around it. And for the most part, this is AliExpress, so they can get away with what they want. But most of the time, they don't even use the term Transformers. So this is another one, a picture that I found. This is what I think they were selling at Kmart's in Easter baskets. In the US, they were selling these at Kmart's. And this or something very similar to it. Now, I did get a couple of them because they were on clearance for $2. I opened them up and I realized they're not compatible with originals. And they're nowhere near the quality. Really hard to get this thing combined and standing. But it was G1 Constructicons in a way. No diecast, really, really cheap. But it was kind of a fun thing to be able to open up a set like this for $2 back in the day. But this is a knockoff. It's an IP infringement and an infringement on someone's design, even though they've made changes to it. Now, this here is a company that made their own design. They made their own figure. They started from the ground up, created a product, but they still are creating a product based on Transformers. They're not using the word Transformers. They're not using the term Jetfire or Skyfire. And they're only really having a market because they're making this figure that is based off of the IP. because that's the only reason people want it, because they want the Transformers. We saw Bad Cube start making their own thing, and I don't even know what it's called, Captain something or another. I don't know where it is, what they would have with that. And I think that marked the end of Bad Cube. They couldn't afford to put all that money and resources into something that they created on their own that nobody wanted. And so that was really a big blow to Bad Cube. And that really, after that, they just kind of stopped making new molds. And with that, if you don't have the IP for it to sell, then it doesn't sell, no matter how creative and how good your figure is. And that's a big part of why Hasbro protects it. You get some companies that are so bold, they just do whatever they want. And literally says Transformers on the box. This is that, I forget what it was called. It was the God of Fire or something like that. Anyway, it's one that was, it's not a copy. The figure itself is completely different than the G1 Jetfire. But they copied the box, the artwork, and all that kind of stuff. But the figure itself was a copy of another company that made this. It was really interesting how they went about doing it. But this is infringing on multiple different franchises and also on the company that made Macross a Veritech. I got my words mixed up there. Veritech fighter. Anyway, talk about all this fun KO stuff. And this was really bold that they did that. But it's a pretty cool product. You're going to notice companies like Fanstoys and them, they don't bother getting the license for anything, including Porsche. And then they'll use the name right on it, which was really surprising that Fanstoys did that. They actually used Porsche in the writing on their figure. And a lot of times companies kind of skate around that by changing names around and words around and stuff like that. Now they went straight full on toy with this, which I'm glad they did, but it does kind of open them up for some sort of issues in the future. That's why this is a quick short run figure, one and done and gone. It's not like something lingering around the market, but also a reason why it was more expensive. They didn't make very many. Still, when you're operating in this range, there's a lot of licenses that you're playing with. Now, I want to kind of set this out there, or throw it out there into the ether. But you're going to see on AliExpress and on eBay too, you're going to see sellers from China selling stuff that is obvious copyright infringement. And there's 2 or 3 things that they do to get away with it. First of all, well, they're located in China. For whatever reason, it is much harder for eBay to police this. And if a request is submitted to eBay to take these down, there's just like 1,000 accounts that just pop up with it again and pop up with it again. So on one hand, you don't even know if you're going to get this, because if this is a reliable seller or not, we don't know. It could have been a reliable seller that went rogue or all this kind of stuff. You have no idea. They're all using the same picture and exact same picture for 7 different accounts. So is it the same person that's got a huge stock of them? Or is this someone just trying to capitalize on what's going on right now? But they're using the term Transformers. Well, they're not in here. A lot of times they use deformation. They use a lot of other things to skate around the whole copyright situation. But one of the things that Hasbro does is if you use the word Transformers or the word transform, they go after you. It's a lot easier to say, okay, these words are the ones that are off limits unless it's officially licensed product from us. And they do. They go after pretty hard, so you don't see it in some of these, and in some of them you do. The other term that people say is convert instead of transform, so they can stay out of trouble. And then, of course, instead of transform or convert, deformation, meaning transformation. Again, some of these that say transformer in it use the word Bruticus, the name Bruticus, which I don't know if they have full rights to the name Bruticus. They should, but I don't know if they do. I don't know if they have the rights to the term Combiner Wars. So there's a lot of question in here. But the fact that this stuff still exists, it says China on it. I did a quick search. Sometimes you catch some stuff in the US. Sometimes that stuff gets taken down. It's just really kind of hit and miss and strange. There's a big ocean of this stuff out there. Policing it is really hard. Generally, if something pops up and it violates what eBay calls their user guidelines, and there's more terminology to all that kind of stuff. I've only gotten hit once about that, and I'll talk about that here in just a bit. But with this, they seem to be able to do whatever they want if they come from China, or if they get taken down, they literally just put up 7 more on 7 different accounts. All right, so I'm going to tell you a quick story about my interactions with Hasbro going after me, which they love going after me for whatever reason. Hasbro and Paramount, whatever. Smallest creator and seller that you are on the planet, the more they go after you because they're just the way they think. They're all screwed up in the head. But this is an item that someone else is selling. This is not my account. This is not my item. And I'm not saying that this person's doing anything wrong. They're not doing anything wrong at all, actually. But when Hasbro went after me, I was selling very similar, but mine was loose. And it was complete. And it had an upgrade kit on whatever I was selling. I'm not even going to get into what I was selling. But it was in this ballpark here. And so I had it up for sale. And I had a lot of people interested in it. And then it gets taken down. I get an email saying that I'm in violation because what I'm selling is not officially licensed. And the item was. It just had an upgrade kit on it. And I'm thinking that most people actually want the upgrade kit more than the item itself in a lot of these cases. And so with that, it was kind of crazy. I could have sold them separately, and that would have been perfectly fine. Or I could have... Well, that's probably the only way to really have done it. Well, I circumvented the system. I had probably 20 emails about it. I just went back and emailed everybody, hey, I'll knock this much off, but I'm not going to do it on eBay. And screw them. And so, screw eBay. And you guys save the money. And that's just the way it is. And it sold really, really fast. So, that's how I circumvent the system on that. I know you're not supposed to do that on eBay. But when eBay doesn't give you a choice because of all the crazy nonsense and you really didn't violate anything, I did not violate their terms. There's no human with a brain that you can speak to. Everybody just reads off of a text. It's ridiculous. But it is what it is. And if I got to circumvent the system when I sell stuff or buy stuff, I do it. I also circumvent the system myself the exact same way. I was looking at an MPO5 Megatron. The guy wanted like 150 for it. And eBay hit him. So this is how I learned about this stuff. I learned about this stuff collecting and buying. And I was communicating with the guy saying, hey, dude, would you take less than that? And when I noticed that it disappeared and all that was left were the $250 ones and his was gone, I messaged him back and I'm like, hey, man, did it sell? I don't see it in sold or anything. So he explained the whole story to me and said, dude, just to get back at eBay, I'll sell it to you for $50. And then now he circumvented the system by creating an alternate listing that didn't showcase the product. But it was because it turned into a gun. But see, it wasn't sold as a gun. It was sold as Megatron like this. When he was hit with it. But I got it for $50 back when these, like, shortly after they came out. And they were still selling for $200. So that was a really steal of a deal because of ridiculous policies that actually make no sense. I always find it funny when people start freaking out and getting all upset that Fanstoys might get shut down, X-Transbots might get shut down, we might not get any MMC stuff, we might not finish our combiners because Hasbro cracking down. Hasbro's been cracking down all along. Just the average person doesn't see it. They don't have to deal with that nonsense. But at the end of the day, there's so many things that they do to operate within certain set guidelines that they follow the laws that are in their homeland, China, and they are not going to get in any trouble, even if it's Hasbro getting involved. That whole Wei Zhang situation, I don't think anybody truly got into much trouble over it, but they all just scattered and started different names of companies, is what I think happened. That's what I heard happen. A lot of people are like, oh, no, they're all in prison. No, they're not. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe. Have your hanger out.